اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد. خل المقادير تمضي لا تغالبها، فإن من غالب الأقدار مغلوب. إن القضاء لسيف لا يقاومه شيء من الخلق إلا وهو محبوب. وامشي رويدا مع الأقدار في مهل، فإن من يكره الأقدار متعوب. سلم وفوض لحكم الله محتسبا، فإنما الأمر مقضي ومكتوب. والله يقضي بما شاء وكيف يشاء، والعبد عبد ومخلوق ومربوب. ولم يزل ربه الرحمن يكلأه، باللطف والحفظ محفوف ومصحوب. حسن ظنونك بالرب الكريم، ولا تسيء ظنا فتبقى عنه محجوب. واعمل لنفسك أعمالا تسر بها، فكل ما يفعل الإنسان محسوب. إن كان خيرا فخير سوف يحصده، أو كان شرا فتنكيل وتعذيب. يا ويل من ضيع الأعمار في زلل، وكل من كسبه الآثام والحوب. واطلب علوما مع إقبال مع عمل، فأنت بالعلم والأعمال مطلوب. واحذر زمانك هذا إنه زمن، به المناكير شاعت والمعايب. فكن وحيدا فريدا خاملا حذرا، فإن فيه الأقاويل الأكاذيب. والظلم فاش بلا لوم ولا نكر، وللمساكين تخويف وترهيب. فكن لبيتك حلسا لا تفارقه، إلا لشيء له في الشرع تصويب. واذكر إلهك ذكرا دائما أبدا، فالذكر بالذكر مقرون ومصحوب. وذاكر الله يجالسه، فاجلس مع الله تأتيك المواهب. واطلب من الله ما تحتاج أجمعه، فالخير يا ذا لديه والمطالب. لا تسأل الله كريم الوجه خالقنا، فعنده الفضل والإحسان مسكوب. واعكف على بابه في كل ما نفس، فإن نسيانه يا صاحبي حوب. وكن أخي بحبل الله معتصما، فكل حبل سواه فهو مقطوب.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue in our lesson in the book of Idah by Sheikh Hassan Al-Sharambulali in the fiqh of Al-Imam Abu Hanifa. And in our last lesson we were speaking about the things that does not invalidate ablution. So before this we were speaking about the things that invalidate ablution and the things that does not invalidate ablution. So we have covered all of it, and today inshallah ta'ala is what we will see in the book that the text that we are in. The author mentioned Babu ma yujibul ightisal. This is a chapter that speaks about the things that makes bathing the obligatory bath compulsory. Bathing the obligatory bath wajib. So what are the things that makes a person obligatory upon him to perform the obligatory bath? So this is the chapter that the author speaks about after he mentioned about the things that invalidate ablution. So there is a difference between taking ablution and bathing the obligatory bath. So in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, وَإِن كُنْتُمْ جُنُبًا فَطَّهَرُوا. If you are in a state of janaba, meaning a major ritual impurity, then it is compulsory upon you to purify yourselves by bathing. Whereas when it comes to wudu, it is a lighter form of impurity. We say it is a minor impurity, that if a person does not have any ablution, then it is compulsory upon him to take ablution, to perform any prayers, and to touch the Quran, and so on and so forth. So now when we will go on to what the author mentioned, he said, يفترض الغسل بواحد من سبعة أشياء. So he said that it is compulsory upon a person to perform the obligatory bath in one out of 7 things. Meaning altogether we have 7 situations where bathing is compulsory. Any of these situations makes bathing the obligatory bath wajib. Number 1, he said, خروج المني إلى ظاهر الجسد. When the sperm comes out from the body to the outer the outer part of the body. When there is sperm present outside a body, when it comes out from the inside of the body, now this makes bathing the obligatory bath wajib, but there is a condition, and he mentioned in the next sentence, إِذَا انفصل عن مقره بشهوة. The condition for us to say that bathing is compulsory whenever sperm comes out from the body is when the sperm comes out as a result of shahwa, So for example, a person is sexually aroused. So sometimes a person is sexually aroused, but the sperm does not come out, but he is aroused. There is arousal, there is sexual arousal. So as long as sperm does not come out from his body, bathing is not compulsory. So when does bathing becomes compulsory? When the sperm comes out in a situation where he is sexually aroused, then only we say bathing becomes compulsory now. So if the sperm comes out as a result of sexual arousal, then bathing becomes compulsory. But if sperm comes out not due to sexual arousal, so for example a person, he is not sexually aroused and so on, but then he saw there is sperm that comes out from his body, for example, and he saw any sperm and his clothes. So in this situation, bathing is not compulsory. So this is a major point of difference between the Hanafi madhab and the Shafi'i madhab. In the Shafi'i madhab, we do not differentiate whether the sperm comes out of sexual arousal or non-sexual arousal. As long as we saw sperm, it is compulsory for a person to bathe. But in the Hanafi madhab, the condition is that it must be due to sexual arousal. Then only bathing becomes compulsory. If the sperm comes out without any sexual arousal, then it is not compulsory for him to perform the obligatory bath. But of course, in the Hanafi madhab, the scholars encourage bathing, even though it does not make bathing obligatory, but because other madhab mentioned that it is compulsory to bathe, and we say this is mura'atul khilaf, to go out of all differences amongst the ulama, it is encouraged for a person to perform the bathing. But is it compulsory upon him to perform the bathing? No, it is not any compulsory for him to perform bathing. This is the first condition. The first condition, and he said that there must be shahwa. Then only bathing becomes compulsory. Number two, min ghayri jima'. It must not any be jima'. If it is other than jima', meaning if a person and he performs sexual intercourse, jima' here meaning sexual intercourse. If a person performs any sexual intercourse, then bathing becomes compulsory upon him. If the ejaculation of sperm is a result of sexual intercourse, this we say it is compulsory upon him to perform the obligatory bath. But if other than sexual intercourse and it is not out of shahwa, then bathing is not compulsory. So this is point number one. Number two, وتواري حشفة أو قدرها من مقطوعها في أحد سبيلي آدمي حي. Yani if the what we say, the head of the penis, if the head of the penis enters into one of the private parts, if the head of the penis enters into one of the two private parts, yani either the vagina or the anus, the minimum length is the head of the penis. Yani the head of the penis, if it enters into one of the two private parts, ahad sabilai Adami, the private parts of the human beings, not animals, hayyin, yani in a state where he or she is alive, then this makes bathing becomes obligatory. Yani if a person insert the head of the penis either into a vagina or into an anus, whether it is a man or a woman, what is important it must be a human being, then this makes bathing obligatory. So other than human beings, if a person does it into other than human beings, it does not make bathing obligatory, but certainly it is a sinful thing. It is sinful for a person to have sexual intercourse with animals. But here the author is speaking about as to whether bathing becomes compulsory or not. He is not speaking about the ruling of the intercourse, but he is speaking about whether it makes bathing obligatory or not, because this is a chapter in Tahara. So how does we understand that sexual intercourse make bathing obligatory? So the minimum size is the size of the tip of the penis, the top of the penis. So if that enters into the private parts, then only bathing becomes compulsory. So it does not becomes compulsory if it is done to animals or to people who have died. So that is why he mentioned the condition is Adamiyin hay. If it is done to a human being, Adami here meaning human being, hay yani in a state of life, not in the state of death. So this makes bathing obligatory. If the penis is inserted, but not to the extent that covers the whole top of the penis, then bathing is not compulsory. So this is point number two. Number three, you say وإنزال المني بوطء ميتة أو بهيمة. Number three, if the sperm is ejaculated, yani there is an ejaculation of sperm when a person has sexual intercourse with a dead person, mītة, with a dead person, and there is ejaculation, then bathing becomes compulsory. But if there is no ejaculation, bathing is not compulsory. This is point number one. Number two, أو بهيمة, yani animal. If a person does sexual intercourse and there is ejaculation, and he had sexual intercourse with an animal, Bهيمة, then it is compulsory for him to bathe the obligatory bath. Why is it compulsory to bathe for him to bathe the obligatory bath in this situation? Because there is ejaculation. If there is no ejaculation, it is not compulsory, as what we mentioned in point number two. So in the Hanafi madhab, we differentiate between a human being, an animal, and a person who is alive and a person who is dead, as to whether bathing becomes compulsory or not compulsory. So this is number 3. Number 4, he mentioned ووجود ماء رقيق بعد النوم إذا لم يكن ذكره منتشرا وقت النوم. If a person, for example, before when he woke up after his sleep, he found out that there is wetness. There is wetness in his clothes. When does he realize this? After he woke up from his sleep. So how do we ascertain whether this wetness is considered to be sperm or madhi? Madhi is a liquid that comes out when a person becomes sexually aroused. So we have to look at the situation before he sleeps. So the author mentioned, in order for us to ascertain whether the wetness is from sperm or not from sperm. So we look at the situation before a person sleeps. So he said that إذا لم يكن ذكره منتشرا وقت النوم. If a person finds himself not in a state where his penis is in a state of hardness when he is performing his sleep, then we say that the wetness is from sperm. But if his penis in a state where he is aroused when he is in a state of sleeping, then we say this is not any sperm, but this is a possibility of madhi. There is a possibility of madhi, because the erection of the penis usually will cause the madhi to come out. So this is the situation. If he finds that there is no erection while he is sleeping or before he sleeps, then the wetness is considered to be a sperm. So this is where the author mentioned ووجود ماء رقيق بعد النوم إذا لم يكن ذكره منتشرا وقت النوم. If a person finds his penis not in a state of erection at the time of sleeping. Now, number 5, ووجود بلل ظنه منيا بعد إفاقته من سكر وإرماء وجنون. So now the author mentioned what happens if a person wakes up from intoxication, or after fainting, or after insanity. If a person finds wetness after intoxication, or irma, fainting, or junun, insanity, then it becomes compulsory upon him to bathe the obligatory bath, because this wetness will be considered to be sperm. Will be considered to be any sperm, because this is in a situation where he is recovering from intoxication or fainting or insanity. Now, number 6, وبحيض ونفاس. And for woman who has gone through the menstruation and the cycle, after it stops, then it becomes compulsory for them to bathe the obligatory bath. This is pertaining to haid, menstruation. Nifas, postnatal bleeding. After delivering of the child, there will be this postnatal bleeding for some time. After it stops, then it is compulsory upon her to bathe the obligatory bath. Walau hasalatil asya'u madhkuratu qabla al-Islam fil asah. So even though if a person enters into the fold of Islam, now we say it is compulsory upon him and her to perform the obligatory bath if all of these things happen before conversion. Before conversion there is ejaculation, there is this sexual intercourse. For example, woman has gone through menstruation cycles, postnatal bleedings, all these things will be the reason for him and for her to bathe the obligatory bath, if she enters into the fold of Islam. So entering into the fold of Islam does not make all the things that is done before Islam to be in a state of forgiven of purity, but it is compulsory upon them to perform the obligatory bath because of all the things that happened before yani Islam. Number 7, وَيُفْتَرَضُ تَغْسِيلُ الْمَيِّتِ كِفَايَةً. Number 7 is pertaining to bathing the deceased. Yani a person passed away, this is fardu kifayah. As what the author mentioned, kifayatan. It means it is a communal obligation that we have to perform bathing for the deceased. If the deceased passed away in a community, there must be at least one person who perform this obligation. So these are the 7 things the author mentioned, which is compulsory upon a person to bathe the obligatory bath when it happens. One of the 7, as what he mentioned. And then he goes on to speak about the things that will not make bathing compulsory. So after he spoke about the things that makes bathing compulsory, he speaks about the things that normally people thought it will make bathing compulsory, but in reality it does not make bathing compulsory. And this is the way of the author, Sheikh Hassan Sharan Bulali. And we find that when he speaks about ablution, also the same. When he speaks about the things that nullify ablution, then he mentioned the things that does not nullify ablution, because there are people who have some misunderstanding, and some people thought that this particular thing will nullify ablution, but in reality does not nullify ablution. This particular thing makes bathing compulsory, but in reality does not make bathing compulsory. So now he mentioned the things that does not make any bathing compulsory. So he mentioned ashratu أشياء. Faslun fima la yujibul الاغتسال. This is a chapter of the things that does not make bathing compulsory. Ashratu أشياء la yurtasalu minha. There are 10 things that bathing is not any compulsory. Bathing is not any compulsory when a person does any of these 10 things. Number 1, mazyun. Yani this is colorless liquid that is sticky when it comes out from the penis. Usually after sexual arousal, it does not make bathing compulsory, but it is considered to be a filth. It is considered to be a filth. Likewise, wadi, wadiyun or wadi. This is a whitish liquid that comes out from the body due to certain sicknesses. And when a person in a state of exhaustion and heat, when a person carries something that is heavy, where the body is under any pressure, so this whitish liquid, usually it comes out when urinating. It comes out when urinating. So this is wadi. This does not make bathing compulsory. Number 3, he mentioned wa ihtilamun bila balalin. A person, for example, he has ihtilam. What is the meaning of ihtilam? Ihtilam meaning a person in his dream he is performing a sexual intercourse, with a woman, for example. A woman performing with a man. So this is ihtilam, in a dream. So bila balal, there is no wetness. Meaning when he wake up from the dream, he saw in the dream that he was having a sexual intercourse with a woman. But then when he woke up, there is no balal, there is no wetness. Is it compulsory upon him to bathe the obligatory bath? No, it is not compulsory upon him to bathe the obligatory bath. Why? Because there is no traces of the sperm. Now, wal mar'atu fihi karrajuli. So likewise, man and woman is the same. Man has ihtilam, woman also has ihtilam. Man has sperm, woman also has sperm. So in order for us to ascertain whether bathing is compulsory for men, if there is wetness, for woman also wetness. Fi ظاهر riwayah. These are the set in your books in Hanafi and madhab that speaks about the rulings of fiqh. So the author mentioned next is wa wiladatun min ghairi ru'yati damin ba'daha fi sahih. Wilada, a person, the woman delivers a child, and there is no traces of blood, no traces of nifas. In the Hanafi and madhab, it is not compulsory. Although there are differences in the madhab, this is the prevailing judgment. This is the prevailing judgment, as what is mentioned by the same author in Maraq al-Falah. This is the opinion of Al-Imam Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani and Al-Imam Abu Yusuf, that if there is no postnatal bleeding, then it is not compulsory upon her to bathe the obligatory bath based on the sound opinion. But Al-Imam Abu Hanifa differs. Al-Imam Abu Hanifa mentioned it is compulsory. Ihtiyatan, to play safe. It is compulsory upon her to bathe the obligatory bath, because Al-Imam Abu Hanifa mentioned usually there will be bleeding. Usually there will be bleeding even a bit. So to play safe, it is compulsory upon him to bathe the obligatory bath. So all these opinions are based on that if there is postnatal bleeding, and this is also one of the main differences between the Hanafi madhab and the Shafi madhab. Shafi madhab, we do not differentiate. Shafi madhab, we say that delivering a child itself is one of the prerequisites of saying that obligatory bath is compulsory, because the child is made up of sperm, the sperm from the man and the woman. So even though there is no blood, obligatory bath is still wajib upon him. But in the Hanafi madhab, they mention that if there is no postnatal bleeding, there is no obligatory bath. Wallahu alam bis-sawab. We will stop here for today, inshallah, and we will continue in the next lesson. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Rabbana taqabbal du'ana innaka anta sami'ul alim. Wa tub alayna innaka anta tawwabur rahim. Wakhtim bis-salihati a'malana wa ajrina Allah ya karim. Fadli subhana rabbika bil izzati amma yasifun. Salamun ala al-mursalin. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.